Ardie Savea, folks, got himself into a bit of hot water. Super Rugby. It's in the news, not for the right reasons, although I would say Super Rugby being in the news will probably take the publicity from this event. But if you missed it, Ardie Savea has been cited. Cited means it's a essentially red cardable offence, which he didn't get red carded for during the game. What was it for? Well, he made a gesture to, is it Ryan Lowrens? I know his surname's Lowrens, I forget his first name. The Rebels halfback. He essentially made a kind of throat-slitting gesture against Lowrens. And that's deemed to be unsportsmanlike enough to warrant a red card. Now, reaction to this one has been pretty mixed. It's one of those divisive ones. I don't know why some issues just split people, or if it's just that social media tends to highlight each end of the spectrum and the majority of people are in the middle. I'm not sure. But, reaction's been mixed from that's essentially a death threat, the guy needs to be locked up in prison and charged, to, like, this is just rugby. And that kind of stuff goes on all the time. Why are you making a big deal about it? So that's essentially what I've been reading from lots of different angles. And I'm probably somewhere in the middle, man. I don't mean to be sitting on the fence, but do I think that that's a red cardable offence? I probably wouldn't have thought so. To be honest, unsportsmanlike conduct goes on the rugby field all the time. Stuff that you wouldn't essentially want your kids to be watching goes on enough. Like, I've been watching rugby with my son enough when the guys grab each other by the collars and they're swearing at each other and, you know, all names under the sun. Usually doesn't get into a fist fight because, you know, if you punch someone, you're going to get carded. But like, that kind of stuff that's no example for children. I mean, I just say to my son, they're probably pretty angry at each other. They're fired up. It's a physical game. And he kind of takes that, I guess, with what it's worth. He plays rugby. Never kind of emulated that behaviour, although he's still only a young fella. He hasn't seen this game because he was in bed by the time this game was being played. If this had happened and he'd been around, I probably just would have said the same thing. It's probably not the smartest thing to be doing, but he's probably pretty mad. And he's probably been provoked. It doesn't excuse it by any means. Provocation is never an excuse for doing any of this kind of stuff. But I'm assuming Ardie Savea probably was having some pretty nasty stuff said to him for him to react that way. Again, it doesn't excuse nothing. But it was probably pretty something unsportsmanlike. I'm just gonna kind of put that out there. But obviously, the fact that the words don't always get picked up on the microphone, whereas gestures are pretty crystal clear, maybe that is a little bit of a difference. But Savea, to his credit, immediately in the post-match knew he had made a mistake and he apologised unreservedly. He owned it 100%, which was pretty pleasing. Sometimes guys in the heat of the moment like to deflect stuff and whatnot, but no, he owned it and apologised. He also put an apology out on social media, acknowledged his role as a role model, but it's not saved him. He's still been cited. Whether or not the citing committee decides, yes, indeed, that was red cardable remains to be seen, but I would imagine with all the furore about this one, he's probably going to get a ban. This seems like one that they're going to, somebody think of the children, and they're probably going to ban him. People have been comparing it a little bit to the haka. If you've seen the Kapua Pongo version of the haka, there's kind of a throat-slitting gesture in that one. It used to be, when they first started doing Kapua Pongo, it was a blatant throat slit, but there was some backlash against that action, and they kind of toned it down. Some of the guys still do a throat slit. Like if you watch, some of the guys do it, and some of the guys kind of keep it low. But there's a comparison there. Yeah, definitely. It's definitely not as overt as it used to be, I will say that. But if I can play devil's advocate for a little bit, the one thing this has certainly created is a lot of drama. Like, this is probably the biggest news story of Super Rugby thus far in the 2 rounds that we've had. This round is not quite complete yet as I sit here recording this, but one thing rugby doesn't do that well is kind of the personalities and the battles and whatnot. That was a great game between the Canes and the Rebels. It was a close game. But rugby tends to do very bland stuff, like player interviews are pretty bland, coaches' interviews are pretty bland, nobody gets talking about nothing. They don't really, like other sports, focus on personal rivalries and the fact that guys don't like each other that much. Yeah, I don't know. This has got people talking, if kind of nothing else. So, as I said, I feel like Rugby Zanzibar is probably going to clamp down on this one. They're not going to stand for it. I would also say it's not a great example. I wouldn't want my kid doing this on the rugby field. I'd probably tell them if you do that to someone, they're going to smash you later on. But obviously, Ardie Savea is a big loose forward who was doing it to a halfback. So he probably wasn't too worried about getting smashed by Brian Lowrens. But yeah, it's certainly a bit of drama. I think Ardie owned it pretty well. He had a bit of red mist. If you're going to have red mist, it's better to do that gesture, I guess, than punching someone in the face. But yeah, we will see what comes of it, folks. You guys let us know what you reckon. Do you think it's as bad as some people are saying? Do you reckon it is just a whole lot of hot air? Or do you kind of reckon it is somewhere in the middle? But yeah, you guys let us know your thoughts. And I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.